The Galactic Council chambers were built to hold thousands. Today, every seat was filled. Representatives from all 247 member species had come to vote on humanity's future. Outside, billions more watched on screens across the galaxy. Yuna sat in the human delegation section with Ambassador Taiho, Captain Doyen, and Dr. Siho. Her hands were shaking. She clasped them together in her lap, trying to stay calm. After weeks of tests, analysis, and the Hunt trial, everything came down to this single vote. The council chamber was a massive circular room with the speaking platform at the center. Seating rose in rings around it, each level holding different species. The diversity was overwhelming. Beings of every shape, size, and color. Some breathed oxygen, others required different atmospheres and sat in special enclosed sections. Some had voices, others communicated through light or scent that translators converted to language. The silver-skinned chairperson called the session to order. Her voice, translated into hundreds of languages simultaneously, echoed through the chamber. We are here to decide the status of humanity within the Galactic Commonwealth. The evidence has been gathered. The tests have been completed. Now we must vote. She gestured to the display screens around the chamber. Data appeared showing the Human Predator Index scores, historical analysis, and footage from the Hunt trial. Humanity scores 9.7 on the Predator Index, exceeding all known species. Their history shows extensive violence, warfare, and predatory behavior. The question before us, does humanity pose a threat to the Commonwealth? A representative from the Velkine species stood up. Yuna recognized him as Vorath's superior, High Researcher Kelthon. I move that humanity's membership be suspended pending genetic modification. The predatory traits that make humans dangerous can be reduced through controlled evolution over several generations. We have the technology. We can help humans become safer. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Taiho's face went pale. They want to change our DNA, he whispered. Make us into something else. Another representative stood, a being from the Thresic species, one of the other high-scoring predator races. I second this motion, but with addition. Humans should be restricted to their home system until modifications are complete. They are too dangerous to allow free movement through Commonwealth space. More voices joined in. A representative from the Pelkey species called for complete quarantine. Another suggested that humans be monitored by peacekeeping forces. The proposals grew more extreme. Some wanted humans expelled from the Commonwealth entirely. A few extremists even suggested preemptive military action, striking Earth before humans could become a threat. Yuna felt sick. They were talking about her species like they were a disease that needed to be cured or eliminated. The chairperson raised her hand for silence. Before we vote, the human delegation may present their defense. Ambassador Taiho Nam, you have the floor. Taiho stood and walked to the speaking platform. He looked small and alone in the center of that huge chamber, surrounded by thousands of aliens who feared what he represented. His voice was steady, but Yuna could hear the strain beneath it. Members of the council, I understand your concerns. The Predator Index doesn't lie. Humans are genetically predisposed to violence. Our history is full of warfare and death. These things are true, and we don't deny them. He paused, looking around the chamber. But there's something else that's true. For the last 60 years, Earth has been at peace. Not just absence of war, but active peace. We solved our conflicts through diplomacy. We fed hungry nations. We shared resources. We learned to see each other not as competitors, but as family. A voice called out from the Velkine section. That is only 60 years. A brief moment in evolutionary time. What happens when resources grow scarce? When populations compete? Will humans revert to their violent nature? Maybe, Taiho admitted. I can't promise that will never happen. But I can tell you what we do every single day to prevent it. We teach our children to resolve conflicts peacefully. We built international laws and institutions. We study our own violent history not to celebrate it, but to learn from it. We remember our mistakes so we don't repeat them. He pulled up a holographic display showing human achievements, medical advances, art, architecture, music, literature. This is also human nature. The same species that wages war also creates beauty. The same hands that once held weapons now heal the sick and build homes. We are complicated. We contain both violence and compassion. The difference is which one we choose to act on. The chamber was quiet. Taiho continued. You want to modify our DNA to make us safer, but our predatory traits are part of what makes us human. Our forward-facing eyes help us create art. Our endurance helps us explore. Our pattern recognition helps us solve problems. If you take away the traits that make us dangerous, you take away the traits that make us useful. But can you guarantee control? The Thresic representative's voice was sharp. Can you promise that humans will never be a threat? Before Taiho could answer, Doyen stood up. No, he said firmly. We can't guarantee that. Because guarantees like that are lies. The chamber erupted in shocked voices. Taiho looked at Doyen in horror, but Doyen continued speaking. Every species in this chamber has the capacity for violence. Every species has members who do terrible things. The Velkeen are peaceful, but you have criminals. The Pelki are gentle, but you have conflicts. Even you, he pointed at the Thresic representative. Your people fight each other sometimes. Perfect peace is impossible for any thinking species. He walked to the center platform, standing beside Taiho. Humans can't promise we'll never have violence, but we can promise we'll fight against it every day. We can promise that when we see injustice, we'll oppose it. When we see suffering, we'll try to help. When we see threats, we'll stand between them and those we protect. Yuna stood up next, her heart pounding. She hadn't planned to speak, but the words came anyway. Dr. Siho Lee and I have more data to present. With your permission? The chairperson nodded. Yuna and Siho walked to the platform. Siho activated a new display, showing brain scans and neurological data. I'm a doctor, Siho said. I study how brains work. And I found something interesting when I compared human brains to other species in the Commonwealth. The display showed comparative scans. Humans have the most developed prefrontal cortex of any species we've measured. That's the part of the brain responsible for impulse control, planning, empathy, and ethical reasoning. He highlighted sections of the brain scan. Yes, humans have strong predatory instincts, but we also have stronger control systems. Our brains evolved specifically to override our violent impulses. We feel anger, but we choose not to act on it. We feel fear, but we choose to face it. We have the capacity for cruelty, but we choose compassion. Yuna added her analysis. Every trait you fear has an alternative use. Forward-facing eyes help us track prey, but they also help us read emotions in other people's faces. High pain tolerance makes us dangerous in combat, but it also helps us endure hardship to help others. Persistence hunting made us deadly predators, but it also makes us refuse to give up on difficult problems. She pulled up images from the hunt trial. You saw us fight the Kraviks, but you also saw what happened after. We offered them medical care. We checked on their well-being. That's human nature, too. We're predators who developed empathy. That combination is rare, maybe unique, and it could be valuable. The chairperson leaned forward. How so? Yuna took a deep breath. The Commonwealth faces threats. Pirates, criminals, dangerous animals on frontier worlds. You need people who can confront danger. But you also need people who won't become the danger themselves. Humans can do both. We can hunt the hunters. We can fight the threats. And when the danger is over, we can show mercy. A new voice spoke from the upper levels. Yuna looked up to see Warlord Krish standing in the Kravik section. His massive form was unmistakable. I have fought humans, Krish said. I have seen what they can do. The Council fears they will become threats. I feared the same thing, but I learned something in that trial ground. He paused. Humans are not like us Kraviks. When we fight until there is no fight left. We show no mercy because mercy is weakness. But humans fought us with intelligence and patience. And when they won, they offered help. They showed concern for our warriors. He looked directly at the human delegation. I recommend that the Council not only allow humans to remain but give them a role, make them protectors, use their predatory nature for good. Humans are dangerous, yes, but they are dangerous the way a guard dog is dangerous. Fierce toward threats, gentle with those they protect. The chamber erupted in debate. Some species agreed with Krish. Others argued humans were still too risky. The chairperson called for order multiple times before the noise died down. We will vote, the chairperson announced. 3 options. First, accept the human explanation and maintain their full membership. Second, place restrictions on human activities pending further observation. Third, revoke their membership and quarantine Earth. The voting process took hours. Each species cast their vote publicly, explaining their reasoning. Yuna sat through all of it, barely breathing. Some votes were expected. The Kraviks voted to accept humans without restriction. The Velkeen voted for restrictions. The transport shuttle descended toward the massive research station that orbited Valar Prime. Dr. Yuna Kang pressed her face against the window, watching the structure grow larger. It looked like a giant wheel spinning slowly in space with lights glowing from thousands of windows. This was the Galactic Medical Institute, the most advanced research facility in the Commonwealth. Yuna still couldn't believe she was here. 3 months ago, she had been teaching biology at Seoul National University. Then humanity made first contact with alien civilizations and everything changed. The Galactic Commonwealth invited Earth to join. And suddenly her expertise in genetics made her one of the most valuable people on the planet. Now she was the first human scientist assigned to work with aliens. The shuttle docked with a soft thud. Yuna grabbed her bag and followed the other passengers out. The docking bay was enormous, filled with creatures she had only seen in briefing videos. A group of tall, blue-skinned beings walked past, their heads shaped like smooth teardrops. 2 small creatures that looked like floating jellyfish drifted by, their tentacles glowing with soft light. Dr. Kang, a voice spoke in perfect English, though it sounded like it came from a mechanical translator. Yuna turned to see a being that made her stop and stare. It stood on 4 legs with 2 more arms extending from its upper body. Its head was triangular, with multiple eyes arranged in a pattern that let it see in almost every direction. The creature's exoskeleton gleamed under the station's lights, colored in shades of green and gold. I am Chief Scientist Vorath, the being said, dipping its head in what Yuna recognized as a greeting. Welcome to the Institute. I lead the Biological Cataloging Division. You will work with my team. Yuna bowed, then remembered that might not mean anything to an alien. Thank you, Chief Vorath. I'm honored to be here. Come, I will show you our current project. Vorath turned and walked with surprising grace despite having 6 limbs. Yuna hurried to keep up as they moved through corridors filled with aliens of every shape and size. They entered a large laboratory. Machines hummed and beeped, displaying data in languages Yuna couldn't read. A dozen aliens worked at various stations, all wearing what looked like lab coats modified for their different body shapes. We are creating a biological database of all Commonwealth species, Vorath explained. Every member species provides genetic samples. We measure and record thousands of traits. This helps us understand medical needs, dietary requirements, and potential health risks. Vorath led her to a particular machine. It was about the size of a refrigerator, with a screen displaying flowing charts and numbers. This is the Predator Index Scanner. It measures hunting instincts, threat response, predatory adaptations, and survival aggression. Every species has some level of these traits. Even herbivores must defend themselves. What's the scale? Yuna asked, leaning closer to examine the machine. 0 to 10, though no species has ever scored above 8. The Velkeen, my people, scored 2.1. We are peaceful herbivores who evolved in forests with few natural predators. Vorath's translator conveyed what might have been pride. The highest score belongs to the Kravik, a species from a harsh world. They score 7.2. They are famous across the galaxy as warriors and hunters. Very dangerous beings, Yuna nodded slowly. She had read about the Kraviks in the briefing materials. They looked like a cross between a bear and a lizard, covered in thick scales with powerful jaws. They worked as security and military specialists throughout the Commonwealth. We need human samples for our database, Vorath continued. Would you be willing to provide DNA? The process is simple. Just a mouth swab, of course, Una said. I can also get samples from the other humans on the station if you'd like. That would be excellent. Genetic diversity in samples gives us better data. Over the next 2 days, Una collected samples from herself and 19 other humans working on the station. There was Captain Doyen Park, who commanded the human diplomatic ship. Security Officer Jiho Kim, a quiet man who always seemed alert. Engineer Hana Choi, who couldn't stop talking about the station's amazing technology. Dr. Siho Lee, the medical officer who asked Vorath more questions than anyone else. The aliens ran tests on all the samples. Una helped process the data, learning to read the Commonwealth's standard scientific notation. The other scientists were friendly, though some seemed nervous around the humans. Una figured that was normal. Humanity was new to the galaxy, and people always feared the unknown. On the 3rd day, Una was analyzing protein sequences when alarms started blaring throughout the lab. Red lights flashed. Scientists rushed to the Predator Index machine, talking rapidly in their own languages. Vorath's translator cut through the noise. Everyone remain calm. We have equipment malfunction. Una joined the crowd around the machine. The screen showed error messages in several languages. The human samples were still inside, but the display kept flickering between numbers that made no sense. What happened? Una asked. The machine is displaying impossible results, one of the other scientists said. This one was Pelkey, a small furry creature who reminded Una of an otter. The Predator Index shows numbers above the maximum scale. It must be broken. What numbers? Una felt a strange chill run down her spine. Pelkey pointed at the screen with a tiny paw. It keeps showing readings between 9.5 and 10. That cannot be real. Even the ancient Draveth, who hunted creatures 5 times their size, only scored 8.1 in historical DNA analysis. Nothing living scores above 7.2. Vorath issued commands and technicians swarmed the machine. They opened panels, checked connections, and ran diagnostic programs. After an hour, Vorath announced, "The machine is functioning correctly. All systems are normal. I do not understand." "Run the test again," another scientist suggested. "Use fresh samples." Una provided a new DNA sample. So did Doyun, Jiho, and Siho. The scientists loaded them into the machine with careful precision. Everyone watched the screen as the analysis ran. The same numbers appeared. 77, 928, 926, 99. The laboratory fell silent. Every alien was staring at the screen, then at the humans, then back at the screen. "This cannot be correct," Vorath said quietly. The translator made the words sound uncertain, almost frightened. "We will test all 20 samples on different machines. We will run every calibration protocol. There must be an error." But Una looked at the numbers and felt something cold settle in her stomach. What if it wasn't an error? What if the machines were working perfectly? What did that mean about humanity? Vorath dismissed everyone for the day. As Una walked back to her quarters, she noticed that the aliens in the corridors moved away from her. They pressed themselves against walls to let her pass. Some refused to turn their backs on her. For the first time since arriving at the station, Una felt afraid. Not of the aliens, but of what they might have discovered about her species. About her. She reached her quarters and locked the door. Outside her window, Valar Prime rotated slowly, a beautiful blue and green world. Somewhere down there, people lived their lives without knowing that humanity might have just failed its first real test. The Predator Index didn't lie. That's what Vorath had said. It measured genetic truth, not behavior or choice. What truth had it found in human DNA? The challenge arrived 2 days before the council vote. It came in the form of an official message broadcast across the Commonwealth networks, and it made everything more complicated. Warlord Krish stood before the cameras, his massive scaled body covered in ceremonial armor. The Kravik leader's voice was a deep growl that the translators rendered into a dozen languages. His message was simple and direct. For 300 years, the Kravik have held the highest Predator Index score. We are known across the galaxy as the ultimate warriors. Now humans claim to exceed us. We do not accept this. We demand proof. I challenge the humans to a traditional hunt trial. 5 of my warriors against 5 of theirs. We will show the galaxy what real predators can do. The message ended. Across the Commonwealth, billions watched and waited for humanity's response. Ambassador Tejo was furious. "This is exactly what we don't need. If we accept, we prove we're violent. If we refuse, we look weak or dishonest. Either way we lose." They met in the human diplomatic quarters. Captain Doyen, Security Officer Jiho, Yuna, Minji, and Dr. Siho gathered around a table while Taiho paced back and forth. The Kravik are professional warriors, Taiho continued. They train from childhood. Our security people are peacekeepers, not soldiers. This isn't a fair fight. It's not meant to be fair, Jiho said quietly. He was a lean man with sharp eyes who rarely spoke unless he had something important to say. Krish wants to humiliate us. Show the galaxy that humans are all talk and no action. Then we refuse, Taiho said. We tell them we're not interested in violence. And they call us cowards, Doyen replied. Tell everyone that we hide behind high scores but run from real challenges. That won't help our case with the council. Yuna looked at the replay of Krish's message on her tablet. The Kravik leader's eyes held contempt as if he already knew humans would back down. What are the rules of a hunt trial? It's a traditional Kravik test, Siho explained. He had been researching Kravik culture since the challenge arrived. 2 groups enter a controlled environment, neutral territory with no advantages for either side. The goal is to mark the enemy team with tracking tags. It simulates hunting without actual killing. Simulates, Minji repeated. But people still get hurt, right? It's combat, Jiho said. Without lethal weapons, but yes, injuries happen. Doyen stood up. I say we accept. Not because we want to fight, but because we need to. The whole galaxy is watching. If we refuse, we confirm their fears that we're dangerous and dishonest. If we accept and lose, we're just another species. But if we accept and win, we prove that humans can control our abilities. We choose when to use them. Taiho stopped pacing. And if someone gets seriously hurt or killed, then we deal with it, Doyen said. But hiding doesn't make us safer. It just makes us look guilty. The debate continued for hours. Finally, Taiho made the decision. He recorded a response message accepting the challenge. Humanity accepts the Kravik challenge. We will prove our worth through honorable competition. The news spread instantly. Within hours, the hunt trial became the most watched event in Commonwealth history. Species from across the galaxy tuned in to see if humans were really as dangerous as the Predator Index claimed. The trial was scheduled for 2 days later. Doyen selected his team, himself, Jiho, and 3 other security officers from the diplomatic ship. All of them were trained in hand-to-hand combat and emergency response. None of them were soldiers in the traditional sense. Vorath and Yuna watched the team prepare in the station's training facility. The humans moved through exercises, testing the Commonwealth standard security gear they would use in the trial. Light armor, non-lethal weapons, communication devices, do you think they can win? Vorath asked. Yuna watched Jiho practice with a stun baton. His movements were efficient, precise. No wasted energy. I don't know. The Kravik trained their whole lives for combat. Our people trained to keep peace. But they are still human, Vorath said. They carry the same predatory traits you measured. The day of the hunt trial arrived. The trial ground was a massive artificial environment, 10 kilometers across. The station's engineers had created a landscape of forests, rocky hills, rivers, and open plains. Temperature controls made some areas freezing, others burning hot. It was designed to be challenging for any species. Billions watched as the 2 teams entered from opposite sides. The Kravik warriors were huge, each one twice the size of a human, covered in natural armor scales. They carried traditional weapons, spears with tracking tags instead of blades, nets, and heavy clubs. They moved with confidence, clearly expecting an easy victory. The human team looked small by comparison. They wore standard security armor and carried stun batons and tag markers. They looked nervous. The trial began. Immediately, the Kravik charged forward, making no attempt at stealth. Their strategy was simple. Use their size and strength to overwhelm the humans quickly. But the humans disappeared. Within minutes, all 5 humans had scattered into the environment. Using the terrain for cover, the Kravik slowed, confused. Their prey had vanished. Yuna watched from the observation deck with hundreds of other aliens. Split screens showed different angles of the trial ground. She could see the Kravik spreading out, searching. But the humans were nowhere visible. Where did they go? Pelkey asked, his small paws gripping the railing. They're hiding, Minji said. Waiting. An hour passed. The Kravik grew frustrated, their movements becoming less coordinated. They knew humans were there somewhere but couldn't find them. Then Jiho struck. He had buried himself in leaves near a narrow path, completely still for over an hour. When a Kravik scout passed, Jiho erupted from hiding. He was smaller, lighter, faster. The Kravik tried to turn, but Jiho had already placed a tracking tag on its back. The Kravik's armor lit up with a red marker. Eliminated. Jiho vanished back into the forest before the other Kraviks could respond. The aliens in the observation deck erupted in excited chatter. The hunt had truly begun. Over the next 5 hours, the humans picked apart the Kravik team. They used tactics that the aliens had never seen before. They set traps using branches and rocks from the environment. They mimicked animal sounds to lure Kraviks into ambush positions. One human, a woman named Hyeji, stayed underwater in a river for 10 minutes, breathing through a reed, waiting for a Kravik to cross. The Kravik were stronger, tougher, and more heavily armed. But the humans were patient. They studied their opponents, learned their patterns, and exploited their weaknesses. When 2 Kraviks cornered Doyen in a rocky area, he didn't try to fight them directly. Instead, he ran. The Kraviks chased him for over 30 minutes across rough terrain. Slowly, Doyen led them higher into the hills where the air was thinner and the temperature was extreme. The Kraviks began to slow, their breathing labored. When they finally caught up, Doyen fought them one at a time, using his fresher stamina to his advantage. He tagged both before collapsing from exhaustion. The trial ended after 6 hours. All 5 Kraviks had been eliminated. The humans had taken injuries, cuts, and bruises, but they had completed their objective. The observation deck was silent. Aliens stared at the screens, watching human security officers help each other out of the trial ground. Jiho had a broken rib. Hyeji had a deep cut on her arm. But they were helping each other, checking on one another's injuries. Warlord Krish appeared on the main screen. He stood in the trial ground looking at the humans. For a long moment he said nothing. Then his translator spoke and his words were broadcast across the galaxy. I challenged humans because I thought they lied. I thought their high scores were mistakes. I was wrong. Krish approached Doyen, who was being bandaged by Siho. You are not like us. Kraviks are predators. We hunt with strength and fury, but humans. You hunt with thought, with patience. You turn the environment into a weapon. You study your prey until you know them better than they know themselves. Krish turned to face the cameras. We are predators. Humans are something different. Something more dangerous. They are death that learned to think. Death that plans. Death that waits. He paused and his next words shocked everyone. But they are also death that chooses mercy. When we were defeated, these humans offered medical aid. They asked if we needed water. They showed concern for our injuries. His voice held something like wonder. A true predator does not do this. Humans are predators who chose to become something else. That makes them more dangerous than we imagined, and more valuable than we realized. The message ended. The galaxy had just witnessed humanity's predatory nature in action. But they had also witnessed something else. Humans who used violence only as a last resort, who fought with intelligence rather than rage, and who showed compassion even to defeated opponents. Yuna stood at the observation window, watching the human team leave the trial ground together, supporting each other. Across the galaxy, billions of aliens were having the same realization Krish had. Humans were dangerous. But maybe that danger could be aimed at protecting rather than destroying. The council vote was tomorrow. Everything would be decided then. The Galactic Council gave Vorath's team 1 week to complete a full analysis of human history. They wanted answers before deciding what to do about Earth's membership in the Commonwealth. Yuna volunteered to help, though part of her didn't want to know what the aliens would find. The research facility they used was in a different part of the station, a secure archive where sensitive data was stored. Vorath's team set up workstations while Yuna transferred Earth's historical databases. Everything was there. Archaeological records, written histories, video footage, genetic studies of extinct species. Thousands of years of human existence compressed into data files. Minji Lee joined them on the second day. She was Yuna's research assistant, a young geneticist who specialized in evolutionary biology. She was also the only other human who understood what they were looking for. They want to know if we're dangerous, Minji said, setting up her workstation. The answer is yes, but they need to understand why that doesn't matter anymore. Vorath overheard her. His eye clusters focused on Minji. How can extreme danger not matter? That is a contradiction. Not if you choose not to use it, Minji replied. A locked gun is still a gun, but it won't shoot anyone. Vorath's translator hummed with what might have been doubt. But he said nothing. The first real discovery came when they analyzed human hunting patterns throughout history. The data was clear and brutal. Humans had emerged in Africa alongside some of the most dangerous predators in Earth's history: lions, leopards, hyenas, crocodiles. Yet humans hadn't just survived. They had thrived. "Look at this timeline," Pelkey said, his small paws moving across a data screen. Humans reached every continent except Antarctica. On each continent, megafauna went extinct within 1,000 years of human arrival. Mammoths, giant sloths, massive birds, all gone. Climate change contributed to those extinctions, Una pointed out. Yes, Vorath agreed. But human hunting was a significant factor. Your ancestors were too efficient. They killed faster than species could reproduce. Minji pulled up another file. But we learned from that. Modern humans have conservation programs. We protect endangered species. We work to undo the damage our ancestors caused. After you had already eliminated the competition, said another researcher, a being named Throck, who resembled a walking plant. Humans are apex predators who removed all other apex predators from their environment. Then they domesticated the survivors. That led to the next disturbing discovery. The aliens found records of human domestication of animals, and it horrified them. "You domesticated wolves," Vorath said, displaying images of dogs. "These creatures would be apex predators on most worlds. Their bite force, pack hunting instincts, territorial aggression, all dangerous traits. And humans brought them into your homes. You turned predators into companions." "Dogs are friendly," Una said defensively. "They're loyal and loving." "Because you genetically modified them over thousands of generations," Throck replied. "You changed their brain chemistry to make them dependent on human approval. That level of genetic manipulation requires understanding predatory behavior at a fundamental level." The research continued, and each day brought new findings that made the aliens more nervous. They discovered human warfare, and that opened an entirely new category of concern. Most species in the Commonwealth had conflicts. Territorial disputes, resource competition, occasional violence. But human warfare was different. It was organized, systematic, and industrial. "What is a world war?" Vorath asked, his translator conveying confusion. "This term appears frequently but does not translate well. How can a war involve a world?" Una closed her eyes for a moment. "It means a conflict where most nations on Earth fought each other. It happened twice in the 20th century. Most nations fought?" Pelkey's fur stood on end. "Across an entire planet? That is, we have no reference for this. The largest war in Commonwealth history involved 2 species fighting over a moon. It lasted 3 months and resulted in 12,000 casualties." "How many casualties in these world wars?" Throck asked. Minji checked the data. "The first one killed about 17 million. The second killed about 70 million. The room fell silent. Una could hear the hum of the computers, the soft breathing of the aliens around her. The numbers hung in the air like a heavy weight. 70 million, Vorath repeated quietly. That is more than the total population of some Commonwealth species. And humans did this to each other. Not to another species. To themselves. "We stopped," Una said firmly. "We created international laws, peace treaties, diplomatic systems. We learned that warfare didn't solve problems, it created them." "But you learned that after perfecting it," Vorath countered. He pulled up more data, showing human weapon development. Humans weaponized everything. Disease, fire, weather control, psychology, starvation. You even weaponized information, creating propaganda to manipulate populations. The analysis went deeper. They examined human physical capabilities and compared them to other species. The results were unsettling. Humans had higher pain tolerance than 94% of known species. They could function with injuries that would incapacitate most aliens. Their persistence hunting ability was unique. No other species in the Commonwealth could run for hours without stopping. "There is also this," Vorath said, displaying brain scans. "The human stress response. You call it adrenaline. When threatened, human bodies release chemicals that increase strength, speed, and reduce pain sensation. This is an extremely aggressive survival mechanism. Lots of species have fight-or-flight responses," Minji argued. "Not like this," Throck said. "Most species flee when injured. Humans become more dangerous. There are documented cases of humans fighting with fatal injuries, continuing to resist even when mortally wounded. This is characteristic of extreme apex predators. But the discovery that disturbed the alien researchers most was about human eyes. It seemed like a small thing, but it represented something profound. Forward-facing eyes, Vorath explained to the team during a briefing, are a predatory trait. They provide depth perception for tracking and catching prey. Prey species have eyes on the sides of their heads to watch for danger from all directions. He displayed images of different species. The Velkine had eye clusters that wrapped around their heads. The Pelkey had eyes on stalks. Even the Kravik, the famous warriors, had eyes positioned to provide wider vision. Humans have extremely forward-facing eyes, Vorath continued. Your field of view is narrow, but your depth perception is exceptional. You evolved to track moving prey with precision. This is pure predatory adaptation. Minji stood up. But we use those eyes for other things now. Art, reading, building complex tools. We adapted predatory traits for peaceful purposes. Or you simply redirected the hunting instinct, Throck suggested. Humans track patterns, solve puzzles, pursue goals with intense focus. Perhaps you are still hunting. You have simply changed what you hunt. The week continued and the evidence mounted. Humans had eliminated megafauna. Humans had domesticated wolves. Humans had created weapons of mass destruction. Humans had fought wars that killed millions. Humans were persistence predators with pain tolerance, stress enhancement, and forward-facing eyes designed for tracking prey. On the last day, Vorath compiled everything into a final report. Yuna read it before it was submitted to the council. The conclusion was clinical and clear. Humans possessed predatory traits that exceeded every known species. They had demonstrated these traits throughout their history. While current human civilization showed peaceful behavior, the genetic capacity for extreme violence remained present. The report recommended caution in dealing with humanity. Yuna sat with Minji in the empty research facility after everyone else had left. Outside the window, stars filled the darkness of space. They're going to quarantine us, Minji said quietly, or kick us out of the Commonwealth. Maybe both. Maybe, Yuna agreed. But maybe not. We have 3 days until the council votes. 3 days to prove that our history doesn't define our future. How do we prove that? Yuna didn't have an answer. How do you prove you're not dangerous when all the evidence says you are? How do you convince people to trust you when they have every reason to fear you? The report would reach the council in the morning. After that, the entire galaxy would judge humanity based on its darkest history, and Yuna wondered if they would ever see past what humans had been to what humans could become. 2 days passed and Yuna barely slept. The laboratory ran continuous tests, checking and rechecking every system. 5 different Predator Index machines, all calibrated independently, all running the same samples. Technicians from other departments came to verify the equipment. Everyone wanted to prove the machines were broken, but every test came back the same. Human DNA scored 9.7 on the Predator Index. Yuna sat in the observation room, watching through a window as Vorath's team ran another round of tests. The chief scientist's movements had changed. Where before he had been confident and smooth, now he seemed jerky, nervous. His eye clusters kept swiveling toward the humans in the room, then quickly away. The door opened and Captain Doyen entered. He looked tired with dark circles under his eyes. They asked me for another sample this morning, he said, sitting down next to Yuna. That makes 5 times. What's going on? The machines keep showing the same results, Yuna said quietly. We score 9.7 on their Predator scale. The previous record was 7.2. Doyen stared at her. That's impossible. We're not predators. Humans gave up warfare decades ago. We're peaceful. The index doesn't measure what we do, Yuna explained. It measures what we're capable of. What's built into our genetics. She pulled up a data screen on her tablet showing the breakdown. Look at this. Forward-facing eyes for tracking prey. Omnivorous digestion that can process almost anything. High pain tolerance. Endurance running abilities. The ability to function at peak performance under extreme stress. And this one, she pointed at a particular marker, the capacity to suppress empathy during threat response. Doyen read the screen, his face growing pale. They think we're monsters. They think we're dangerous, Yuna corrected. There's a difference. Before Doyen could respond, Vorath emerged from the laboratory. Dr. Kang, Captain Park, please come with me. The Biological Ethics Committee has requested an emergency meeting. They followed Vorath through the station's corridors. Yuna noticed how other aliens reacted now. Some hurried away when they saw humans coming. Others stopped and watched, their postures tense and ready. A group of Kravik warriors stood at an intersection. their massive scaled bodies blocking part of the corridor. As the humans approached, the Kraviks moved aside, but their eyes tracked every movement. One Kravik growled something in its own language. Vorath's translator didn't interpret it, but the tone was clear enough. It wasn't friendly. The committee met in a secure conference room. A dozen aliens sat around a curved table, representing different species from across the Commonwealth. Yuna recognized some from the briefing materials. Others were completely new to her. Ambassador Tehonam was already there, looking confused and frustrated. He was Earth's chief diplomat to the Commonwealth, a man who had spent his entire career building bridges between nations. Now he was trying to do the same between worlds. Ambassador Nam, said a tall being with silver skin and no visible mouth. Its translator spoke in a musical tone. We have called this meeting to discuss the biological assessment of humanity. The results are concerning, Teho spread his hands. I don't understand what the problem is. So we scored high on some test. Humans are peaceful. We haven't had a major war in over 60 years. We've spent the last century learning to cooperate, to solve problems without violence. The test does not measure behavior, another committee member said. This one looked like a slug but stood upright on a platform that moved for it. It measures genetic capacity, potential, what a species is capable of under the right circumstances. Or wrong circumstances, added another voice. This alien was covered in feathers with a beak that clicked when it spoke. Vorath stepped forward, activating a holographic display. Images appeared above the table showing the comparative results. Allow me to explain why this is serious. The Kravik score 7.2. They are the most feared warriors in the Commonwealth. Planets pay them enormous sums to provide security. They come from a death world where everything evolved to kill. The display shifted, showing images of the Kravik homeworld. Yuna saw footage of massive predators, landscapes of fire and ice, plants with poisonous spines. The 3-6 score 6.8. Vorath continued. They are ambush predators with venom that can kill most species in seconds. The Gorath score 6.5. They are pack hunters who share thoughts through neural links, allowing perfect coordination. More images appeared, each one showing species that looked terrifying. Creatures with too many teeth, too many claws, too much armor. Every species in the Commonwealth falls somewhere on the index, Vorath said. The peaceful Velkeen at 2.1, the Pelki at 1.8. Even the extinct Draveth, who were so effective as predators that they hunted all large prey on their world to extinction, only scored 8.1. The display changed to show the human results. The number 9.7 glowed in red. Humans exceed every known species, Vorath said quietly. By a significant margin. This has never happened before. We do not know what it means. Teho stood up, his voice rising. It means your test is broken. Humans aren't natural-born killers. We're teachers, doctors, artists, parents. We build things, we create things. We don't hunt. Not anymore, said the slug-like being. But you did. We have been reviewing your historical databases. Humans hunted megafauna on 6 continents. You hunted until there was nothing left to hunt. Then you turned on each other. That was thousands of years ago, Teho protested. We evolved past that. Evolution takes millions of years, the feathered alien clicked. You cannot evolve past your nature in a few thousand years. You can only learn to suppress it. Yuna stood up slowly. Everyone turned to look at her. May I speak? The silver-skinned chairperson gestured with one long-fingered hand. Please, Dr. Kang, we would value your perspective. You're right, Yuna said. Humans are predators. We evolved that way. Our eyes face forward because we needed to track prey. We can run for days because we hunted by chasing animals until they collapsed from exhaustion. We digest both plants and meat because we ate whatever we could find. Every physical trait you measured is real. The room was silent. Teho looked at Yuna like she had betrayed him. But you're also wrong, Yuna continued, because the most important human trait isn't in our DNA. It's in our choice. Humans learned to control our violent instincts. We developed law, philosophy, ethics. We built civilizations on the idea that we don't have to be what our biology wants us to be. Noble words, said one of the committee members, a being that looked like it was made of crystal. But instincts are powerful. Under stress, under threat, what prevents humans from reverting to their predatory nature? The same thing that has prevented it for 60 years, Yuna said. Willpower, choice, the decision to be better than our instincts. The feathered alien's beak clicked rapidly. But can you guarantee that? Can you promise that humans will never pose a threat? The index shows capacity, not intent. You have the capacity for tremendous violence. So do you, Doyen said suddenly. Everyone looked at him. Every species has the capacity for violence. You all evolved from something. You all have survival instincts. The only difference is that humans are honest about ours. The meeting continued for hours. The committee asked hundreds of questions. What about human military forces? What about combat training? Why did humans study historical battles if they were peaceful? Why did violent sports still exist? Why did humans tell stories about war and conflict? By the end, no decisions were made. The committee dismissed them with instructions to prepare for a full review of human history and culture. They wanted to understand what they were dealing with. As Yuna, Doyen, and Taiho walked back through the station, they passed a news screen. A breaking news report showed footage of the Predator Index results. The story was spreading across the Commonwealth. Billions of aliens now knew that humans scored higher than any known predator species. The galaxy was learning to fear humanity, and Yuna knew that fear would change everything.